Broadcasting from the Bayou State and all around the Gulf Coast and streaming nationwide. This is the C.L. Bryant Show.
It's Friday, and this is the weekend show with C.L. Bryant, and I want to thank each and every one of you for being here throughout the fruited plains of the greatest nation on the face of the earth, the greatest success story the world has ever known, and that is America, land of the free, home of the brave. And I want to thank our friends right here in the jeweled cities of the Arklatex, where the show emanates from, Shreveport and Bossier, my home, for tuning in today. And you've been there all week long. It's been a jam-packed week. I mean, just fully heavy. And so much has gone into this week to make it what it is. And I want to welcome aboard all of our friends in southern Arkansas and East Texas. Thank you for being here. Download the free C.L. Bryant Show app onto your Android or iPhone device, and you can listen anywhere in the world, just like our men and women in uniform who are in foreign places, who do drop me from time to time emails and text telling how the show does add to their lives and how it does add entertainment even to their situation, and we pray for them and want to thank God for them. Well, folks, today on this Friday show, we're going to have not only another one of the representatives from the National Federation of Republican Women on with me. We're also going to have a couple of guys who are on a sister station here in Town Square. We're going to have them on to see why they want to do radio and what they are about. So hang around. And I tell you what, before we get into all of that, I hope that all of you are truly thankful that you made it through this week. It's been if life's the trials of life, if the trials of life have not affected you in an adverse way, I mean, taking someone from your circle, if you haven't been touched by tragedy, if you haven't been called to your child's school because some idiot was shooting it up, if you have not been on a train that didn't stop, if you weren't walking somewhere in America where there was not a pipe bomb discovered within 25 feet of you or closer, you should be very grateful. You should be very grateful. And let me say this. It's time to reflect. And it's time to count your blessings. And to tell you the truth, you ought to name them, as the old song says, one by one. Because, folks, we live in perilous times. Just the other day, young people sitting in their classrooms, young people on their school grounds, I'm talking about elementary school ground, were assaulted by a young man who had shot his father and then took it upon himself, in his mind, twisted and warped as it is, to then go and shoot up an elementary school. Something crazy is happening in this world. Over in South Carolina, in the Carolinas, we've seen some crazy stuff going on in the Carolinas altogether. But it's just not there. You know, it would be great if you could confine ignorance and stupidity and tyranny and terrorism to just one segment of the world or the country. That way we'd know where to drop the bomb and get rid of them. But we don't. And it's not. It is everywhere. It is rampant. It can happen anywhere. And as we take this time right now in this first half hour, this is what I'm going to use this first half hour with you and we want to leave you with something here in this weekend show for you to think about through the weekend. And it is absolutely amazing to me how this is spreading throughout the landscape of our nation. The sad part is this. The frightening part is this. Although, and even though it is sad, even though it is frightening, you have to continue to live your life. And it becomes more and more apparent to us as we look at the news cycle and as we see the carnage that goes on in this world. It becomes more and more apparent to us what Jesus said. Tomorrow is not promised to anybody. It's just not. You live it until it's over, and I certainly hope you're living it the best you can. But it's tough now. And this is what is most challenging about it. You drop your child off at school, or the skating rink, or the mall, or whatever, wherever. You take them to the park. You're with them. You could be sitting in your church, as we have seen. You may be going about your daily lives like the folks in Hoboken. I mean, when something just unexpected happens, we'll explore this a little bit further when I return. I'm CL. Okay, so you're going about your daily life, and there's no danger associated with what you do, you may think. There is nothing that you should be, overly cautious about other than driving yourself to work and not, tripping over the stairs or whatever it might be at work. Falling down on the kids' toys at home if you're a homemaker. There's nothing out of the ordinary that you should be overly cautious about because you have identified all of the potential dangers in your life as an American, wherever you may be listening to the C.L. Bryant Show. You know that there is no real danger associated with what you do. Even if you are a professional firefighter, you're trained to deal with the danger that you must face. So even that danger in itself becomes a part of what you're trained to handle, what you're trained to do. Kick it up another notch as a police officer out on the streets, patrolling the underbelly sometimes of society, even in deep nights as a police officer. Even though, yes, that is dangerous work, no question about it, you're still trained to deal, hopefully psychologically, with that danger, and you're trained to handle it if it comes your way. And yes, you should fully expect that the training and your preparation will allow you to go home that night unscathed. Military, wherever you are in this country, yes, you are there to protect, defend our nation, just as the police are there to protect and defend our communities along with our first responders and so forth. But everyone, regardless of the level of danger, whether it is absolutely minimal or if it is absolutely extremed, we'll rely on what we know and what we are familiar with. And in that familiarity, we fully expect to make it through the day. And what is happening now on a scale that I really cannot even describe, because it has taken us out of the ordinary. What is happening now is that there is this unexpected something that could happen. Sure, an accident can happen anytime. That's the price of driving a car. Having that in the back of your mind, actually, that keeps you safe, especially if you ride a motorcycle. I don't anymore for various reasons. One of them, I almost got killed, but I don't ride them anymore. But especially if you ride a motorcycle, you know, you have that expectation. You have to be aware of what's going on. That keeps you alive. Well, now what keeps us alive is to have our head on a swivel. But how can you have your head? I'm thinking about this train accident now, yesterday. Early morning commute there in Hoboken, one of the most traveled train stations in the country, if not the world, right there in Hoboken. And I don't think I've ever caught that train. But people in that area, right in that area right there, yes, there's plenty of traffic because there's plenty of people going, across the bridge to New York and so forth. But a lot of people, probably more people than not, don't have cars. They catch public transit. And think about this. You've caught this train day in and day out for maybe years. There's certain expectations that you have when you're standing on a train platform. And one of them is not that train is going to run through the platform and kill you. It doesn't happen. But it does. How many times have you walked past that trash dumpster? How many times have you sat down in your church to pray? How many times have you dropped your child off to school? You're not expecting anything to happen to them. The train, I can surely understand any type of mechanical or human failure there. But there's other types of failures that's going on in our country right now. Human failures that's going on in our country right now. And these human failures are, in fact, causing the type of uneasiness that has never existed in America before. Never existed in America before. The train, we'll see how that pans out. But this shooting at the elementary school, these pipe bombs that these homegrown terrorists are placing around, and these people who are wanting to do Americans harm and bring down planes, that type of thing. There is something that is being talked about in this presidential election right now that you really need to pay heed to. And I'm going to be talking about this around this nation for the next 6 weeks. And that is the return of law and order. Train, I don't know what the deal was. They're ruling out, they've basically ruled out terrorism, I guess. Can't expect that. Even if it was human failure, there's no way you can expect that. There's mechanical failure. You can't, it happens. But there is something that the people perpetrating these things are not expecting anymore, and that's law and order. Talk to you more about it when I return. I'm CL. CL back with you on this weekend, the weekend show. It's Friday, and this show does play again on our friend station, The Promise, and both tomorrow morning and also on Monday morning. So tune in, our friend station, The Promise, to hear the replay of this first hour of the C.L. Bryant Show. Now, law and order. It's a good thing. Oh, I know that to some segments of the country, some segments of the world, that may seem to be some kind of dog whistle, and I am yet to understand what that means. Oh, I knew what it meant back in the day, but we're not back in the day. We're living right now. Now, last night I was on Hannity for a segment, and I had a chance to allude to this, and I don't know if we'll ever have our own television program locally or nationally. I don't know. We've talked to folks about that. I've talked to folks about that, but I don't know. But I'm just trying to do radio the best I can right now, and that's what I tell them. I can barely do this, barely. But I wanted to say this, and I want to press this point to all of you. I was on Hannity night before last, actually, and on Wednesday night. And I want to say that there are many thousands of law-abiding citizens in the inner city that are just as tired of crime in their communities as we are. And let me share this with you. You may or may not know this, or you may or may not have thought about this. But do you understand that whenever a person who is law-abiding, who has to live in a low-income area, whenever they're living there and they are burglarized, they are robbed, it actually hinders the time frame that they have to get out of that. So the burglary and the robbery that goes on, the crime that goes on in the inner city, it's perpetrated, yes, not by everybody there. It's perpetrated by a very small percentage of the people who live there. The rest of the people who live there are trying to get out, but they can't, because the lack of law and order that is happening there does not provide a pathway, a platform for them to exit. And so in many cases, people give up because they move there probably to save money, or because they could live there on their meager means until they can get out. But then they are preyed upon by the criminals who are in the area. And that actually sets them back even further from getting out. You have had people who have been working hard all their lives to provide for their children so that the kid could get out, only to have the kid become intoxicated and influenced by the culture of crime that exists in the community. Folks, yes, it can be a vicious cycle, and no, I don't buy into the victimization of that, because I do believe that you can get out of that, but I do believe that in order to actually do it effectively, you have to vote for people who are in favor of law and order. And you cannot buy into the progressive liberal mantra who want there to be inner cities. They don't have anything to talk about if there's not inner cities. They don't have mascots to pat on the head and say, we'll take care of you, if there's not inner cities. They don't have anybody to point to and say, see how bad they have been, if there's not inner cities. They have no victims. If law and order provides a stable platform for those who want to exit, as long as the words law and order are perceived to be dog whistles for go get and attack the minorities, then the progressive liberals will always have their way, because then it becomes an emotional issue whenever you hear the words law and order. Law and order should be something that means the same thing to anyone who hears it, and that is, I'm going to be able to live my life in peace. So, because there is this feeling, this mood in America right now among the evildoers, oh yes, and folks, evil exists. It exists. And because there is this mood in our nation right now that if in fact I do something crazy, nothing bad will happen to me immediately, swiftly, then it lends, that attitude, that mood lends itself to carnage, chaos, And that's exactly what Saul Alinsky designed in his Rules for Radicals. Create chaos, tear down the society. We're seeing it happen. I'm CL. We're going to talk to the National Federation for Women on the other side of the break. CL, back with you here on the weekend show, broadcasting throughout the fruited plains of the greatest nation on the face of the earth, the greatest success story the world has ever known. And it is incumbent upon us to keep the republic and to defend it. I want to welcome one of our native daughters onto the show now, Carrie Allman, who is the president, National Federation of Republican Women. I met her when she was coming through our fair city here in Shreveport with Rosie, the bus tour, and I want to welcome her back now. Carrie, welcome back to the C.L. Bryant Show. How are you?
Well, thank you, sir. I'm doing very well.
Well, fantastic. I'm doing well. I'm doing really good, and I see that you have made over 50,000 members nationwide. Is that right?
Oh, yes, way over 50,000.
That is fantastic. Now, tell us this about the bus tour. Where have you been? Tell us about how this tour with Rose. My signature is on that bus, and I see that Paul Ryan and people like Scott Walker is on the bus and all of that. Tell us, how has that been going?
CL, this has been the most amazing adventure I have ever been a part of. We, as you may remember, we kicked this tour off on Mother's Day, which is just about 146 days ago, not that I'm counting, from Missouri. And we have traveled to 38 states. I can say that Rosie has been from Niagara Falls all the way to Mount Rushmore and down through Nevada and back up through Colorado and through Texas, and we made a second stop in Louisiana. We missed seeing you, and now we're in Florida. We have traveled over 25,000 miles, just over 2,200 rallies, and our calculations show that that's over 275,000 Republican women and GOP volunteer candidates, dignitaries that have come by to put their signature on Miss Rosie.
And let me ask you this. Now, the purpose of this tour is to rally the base. Give us the end game. What is the motivation?
Well, in 2014, the National Federation of Republican Women were responsible for actually doing tracking and giving awards for over 4.2 million campaign volunteer hours. And when we found out that there were 23 million unregistered females out there, we knew we had to do something different. And so that's where the idea of putting Rosie on the road came from, to get out, to actually let all of our members and volunteers across the United States know that the national president wasn't just sitting in Alexandria, Virginia, saying, go out and do more to make us have Republican victories in November. She was actually putting her money where her mouth was and letting the communities know what we do and engaging our women.
What's amazing about the number that you just gave out, Rosie, Carrie, is this: 23 million unregistered women, who very well could vote Republican. Do you know that is enough votes to pretty much seal the deal for any Republican presidential candidate? That is amazing.
Well, I would think it would be enough. We are, depending on what, a statistic that you look at, CL, women are 52 to 54% of the population. And so absolutely women are going to swing this. And what we wanted to do was remind everybody that you need to work hard and get people registered to vote. The women of the National Federation of Republican Women are responsible for all the grassroots activities of voter registration, working the polls, candidates, door-to-door knocking. I mean, you ask any elected official across the United States, they can tell you a story that, the Texas Federation of Republican Women, the women of whatever county, were responsible for getting me across the finish line.
Let me ask you this, Carrie, when we think about our younger women who very well could be voting Republican, and I encourage all young women, if they care anything about their future, to certainly consider the planks in the Republican platform. But how are you seeing young faces at these rallies, at these on the tour that you're going? Are you seeing them? Because I want to encourage you, if you do, make a special effort, please. We do here on the show, and we do here in the article section, wherever I go throughout the country. I make a special effort to definitely engage young people. Are you seeing them show up?
Oh, we are seeing them show up. And the excited young people that are volunteering and working for Donald Trump, working for candidates, local candidates, it has truly, truly been amazing. And they, a lot of them understand the importance of this election and how it's going to affect their future, their children's future, and not just our future, but the Supreme Court appointees that are going to be made after this election. They understand how critical it is, and so I've been amazed at the number of young people and young women out there.
I think that this is going to be one of those elections where we're going to see the election process evolve in this country. And I certainly want our candidate, Donald J. Trump, DJT, to become the next president of the United States. One of the reasons is I have a good friend, Mike Lee, who is on the short list for Supreme Court Justice. And I just think Trump will be good for us. And I just want all of us to get behind the effort that Carrie, how can we help you? Is there a website that we can go to? How do we help you?
Absolutely. We are keeping a blog. We are actually our website for the National Federation of Republican Women is www.nfrw.org, National Federation of Republican Women. The website for the blog that we're keeping with all the pictures and all of the excitement around the rallies is www.rosie16.com. And I encourage all of your listeners to go on and look about Rosie's travels. Look at the good work that the National Federation of Republican Women do. If you want to join a club, you can write a map and find out where the closest club is and jump in there and volunteer and help these ladies. And of course, Rosie has a hefty appetite for fuel.
And you also have an app. What's that app? What's the app?
The app, all you have to do is type in Republican Women, and the logo of the eagle on the ballot box will show up, National Federation of Republican Women.
Fantastic.
You can download that.
Carrie, I got to leave it there. Listen, I certainly do appreciate you. Godspeed. God bless and keep you. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. CL, back with you on this weekend show. We're broadcasting, streaming live throughout the greatest nation on the face of the earth, the greatest success story the world has ever known, and that is the United States of America. Now, folks, I want you, and I want to thank you for making us the most listened to talk in the Arklatex. I want to thank some of our sponsors right now: Holmes, Honda, European, Bailey's Fine Jewelers, Tiger Axle, Milam Cars, Signature Cleaning, Chevyland, and Subway for being there for us. Those that I've just called out have been with us for the 2 years that we have been on, and it has been an incredible ride, all because of you, and we want to thank you again for being here with us. And as we travel down the road, we meet travelers, fellow travelers along the way, and I've just met two of them, Brandon Michael and Carter. They have a new radio show. It is called Morning Madhouse on a sister station right here in Town Square. And I'm going to welcome them for the first time to the C.L. Bryant Show. Brandon, Carter, thank you so much for being here with me. Glad you're here.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, we appreciate the time.
Well, let me ask you this. Why radio? Why do two guys like you, two studs like you, want to do radio?
Well, because we don't have the faces for television.
Right.
So we figured radio was
We're not
perfect
visually appealing.
You joined the club today.
Exactly.
Okay. And I could be the president. But anyway, Jay, you're involved with this as well, right?
Yeah, we were just I do afternoons on K94.5. So the Morning Madhouse, they've actually been together for quite a long time over in East Texas, and due to a borderline just crazy event that went down on their other station, they became available. And one thing that's important to our station is just being local. And we had a national syndicated show for so long, so it was a big deal for us to get a local crew in town. And really, the way it worked out, it's and they'll tell you, but it's a crazy situation that allowed them to come here. But we're happy to have them for sure.
Now, what's the station?
It's K94.5.
K94.5 is where you can hear Morning Madhouse. Morning Madhouse, tell us what that. It's self-explanatory, but maybe not. But maybe not.
Well, it was kind of crazy that we got together, so that really kind of set the tone for the show in its entirety. And it is really just kind of a mashup of the craziest things that run through our mind. We were just honestly surprised that anybody else liked it.
And the Carter, that's the same way you.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, we just whatever we're doing at the day, whether it's yesterday I had my armpit waxed.
Right.
Last week I got beat up by a female kickboxer.
We've almost set one of our other co-hosts on fire.
On purpose?
Mm-hmm. Well, it was an unintended consequence of the giant fire that was involved in the stunt.
We sawed a boss's desk in half one time.
That was actually really cool.
Sounds like fun. And hey, listen, for all of you out there who are still young at heart, and I am, you want to tune in. You want to tune in and give them a listen. I'm sure it will be a bright spot in your day. How long you guys been doing this?
I've been doing the radio thing for about 20 years, Carter. I think you got 7 in. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm 7 in right now. Brandon actually started. He's misleading you. He actually started in radio back in 1972.
That's not
I
true.
Think that was right.
That's not true at all. Yeah, it was me and Marconi. We got together and thought, man, maybe this radio thing is going to take off.
You really think? You think?
We'll see. We'll run it up the flagpole, see who salutes. Of course, we didn't have flags back then.
Now, my producer introduced me to you guys, and one of the things that really captured her attention was the fact that you guys play the national anthem every day.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, I mean, we do live in the greatest country, and we're never going to forget that. And we want to remind our listeners, too, that no matter what's going on in their life, no matter where they're going, they're Americans. They're allowed to live their life the way they want to live because of this great country, because of the sacrifices all the men and women in uniform have made for countless years. I mean, you probably could count them, but I don't know the number off the top of my head. Anyway, so we want to remind
240.
240. See, I knew that you were going to chime in on that. But we want to remind them that no matter what's going on, we're all Americans. We're all in this together.
And now, what would be the major difference between you? I see the yin and yang. I can see it. Mm-hmm. I can see the fire and ice, regardless of which role you play.
Right.
But what's the major difference? Would you guys say is between what makes it work?
Well, community, being a part, going back to what old school radio used to be, like you said, playing the national anthem every morning, helping out local charities, talking about local businesses, talking to local musicians, doing as many things for the community and locally as possible, and not just doing the same thing every week, not having the same bit, not having the same jokes every week, keeping it fresh, keeping it new, and having the listeners really be a part of the show.
I like that.
See, we think that that's really where the magic comes from in radio. I mean, being able to just say words so that people can hear, I mean, that's not really what it's about. Being involved in the community, being somebody that, you may be able to see some of your listeners at Walmart or wherever you're going to be, and letting them know that you are actually a part of the community, both through seeing you in the community and also being, very caring about what the community needs. Those are basic tenets of our show.
Definitely, Brandon. Jay, now how do you fit into all of this?
Oh, I don't really.
Because Jay's my main
man. I actually don't like either one of these guys, so that's kind of where
I could tell when they came in.
Right.
I saw it.
It's his hair.
I saw it in your eyes.
Nine years ago in November, I started at K94.5, and I was doing the mornings as kind of the stuntman, third person on the last local morning show that K94.5 had. So to see it come full circle almost 9 years later, it's just cool to be a part of it. The guys and I, we've kind of worked together just on kind of things, but they do their own thing in the mornings, and we love it. And then I just come out in the afternoons and try not to mess it up.
Now, y'all were over in East Texas.
That's true. Mm-hmm.
So you commute or you live over there, or you are part of the community now?
We actually moved here about 3.5 weeks ago. We moved. We live in Bossier City now.
Yeah,
Well-
we are 100% a part of this community now.
Fantastic. Well, I tell you what, I always refer to Shreveport and Bossier City area as the jewel cities of the Arklatex, and it is. And you couldn't have either city would have been absolutely fantastic. Now the end goal, the goal for you. Is to, of course, be around for a long time. Winter's approaching. Your audience is a younger audience. There's a lot of madness. Your morning madness is the name of the show, folks. There's a lot of madness that go on. Is there ever a serious side of this, or is it just lighthearted?
Well, when it comes about, I mean, because we want to react to our listeners' lives, and first and foremost, I think that one of the things that we bring to them is a bright spot, a funny spot, a lighthearted way to start the day, because there's so many, hard issues to deal with in life. There's so many difficult situations that arise in everyone's life that we like to be the levity that they get to start the day off. But the other side of that coin is that we do not ignore big things that are happening, and we want to be the heart and soul, so that when our community is crying, we're crying.
Right.
When they're hurt, we're hurt.
Right.
And we don't want to be too serious all the time in the mornings, because you really want to laugh, you want to wake
Right,
up.
right.
But when we're doing our charities and we're talking, we have a big one coming up in December that we do. In the past, it's been with Toys for Tots. We're changing it up this year and doing Operation Santa, which is with the local police department, and that we live in a box for a week. I'm not sure where we're going to be this year, but we're going to be living in a box for a week, raising toys, and that's when you're talking to kids, and you're talking to families that have been there and had to use people like that in the past.
I like it.
And you're talking to other families that are teaching their kids about what it means to give back, and those are the times where you get more.
I like it. Morning Madness with Morning Madhouse with Brandon, Michael, and Carter. Tune them in. I'm CL. Thank you guys for being with me.
Thank you.
Be right back. Yeah, that's the question that too many people are asking in this country right now. Hey, Joe, where you going with that gun in your hand? And I got to tell you something. Too many times these days, we are hearing, hey, son, where did you get that gun? Yeah. Hey, son, where did you get that gun? Hearing that too much here in this country right now. We've lost a grip on it. I really liked Brandon, Michael, and Carter. Morning Madhouse. Morning Madhouse is the name of that show. What's the station, Michelle? 94.5. Because their type of levity is something that we need in these perilous times that we live in. I mean, you can wake up. Listen, if you go to sleep and if you're looking at a news cycle the way I do, the way Michelle does, and Rick and people associated with my show, the type of things that we do, Sean Hannity, Rush, those people, Moon Griffon, we are constantly in the news cycle. That's what we do. We're constantly paying attention to what's going on in the news cycle, particularly in America. But of course, we look at the international news as well. And folks, Jane and I and Michelle, Rick, anyone who's Moon, Sean, any of them, any of us, we have to get away from the news cycle. When you're involved in this business, it's just not turning it off when you leave the office. Most of my adult life, for some reason or other, the good Lord has always blessed me to make a living with that. Being a pastor is the same way. You never turn off being a pastor. You never turn off being a minister of the gospel or a counselor or something of that nature. You just can't turn that off. So you have to get away somehow, especially now, because it's not something that happens ever so often, or dry long so, as the old folks used to say. Every day. You have stuff that is absolutely affecting the psyche, the political landscape of America, that not only do you have to deal with on a personal level, but what I have been appointed to do and what I am called to do is try and talk to you about how to make sense of this, or how to deal with this, or build a bridge to having a conversation about it. Because before you know it, if you're not careful, folks, you can actually wind up in a cocoon. And that's not a good place to be. Because unless you actually engage the culture that is evolving around you, unless you affect it, not only engage in it, but affect it in a positive way, it will overrun you. Yes, it will. It will overrun you. And that is what you're seeing today. You're seeing it in the schools. You're seeing it in the streets of America, in the schools. You're seeing your children being poisoned with political correctness. And you can't be in a cocoon while your children are being poisoned with political correctness because they're bringing it home to you. You look across the table and there you're thinking you're talking to your child and you're talking to Karl Marx. That's because you have not affected the culture. You've engaged in it, but you haven't affected it by saying anything. You know, he who makes the greatest mistake is the person who does nothing because they thought they could only do little. That's Edmund Burke, a great statesman. He says, he who makes the greatest mistake is the person who does nothing because he thought he could only do little. But you never know how much the little you do can affect the whole. A little bit of yeast leavens the whole loaf, remember. Just a little, it makes it rise. But without it, the bread remains flat. Jane bakes bread. I glory to God. I mean, she's good at it. And so, as my wife, Jane, she bakes bread. And she's good at it. And I'm always amazed at how she's able to make that bread rise just perfectly. But during the Passover season, she makes, the Passover bread, which is flat. Nothing put in that. Do you realize that you have an opportunity now, if you will, to shape the culture, to shape the environment? But there is something concerning, there is something troubling that is going on. And that is exactly why I quoted Edmund Burke. Because there are a lot of us who are saying we're not going to do anything because we're asking ourselves the question, if I did something, what difference would it make anyway? That, my friend, is a nation killer. That thought pattern, that kills nations. That kills communities. It'll kill your home. I'm CL. Be right back.
When you wake up in the morning and the light has hurt your head, the first thing you do when you get up.
How do we get to a place? How do we get to a place where 40 professional athletes are, and watch the trend now. You have to watch the trend because there is a trend going on that occurred because of complacency. Yeah, there's a trend that occurred because of complacency. And let me show you what happens. Let me give you an example of what happens when there is complacency. Now, keep in mind that there are people, and it's going to force the NFL to do something because they can't continue this particular trend. The ratings for watching NFL football is down across the board, across the nation. And I think that we should see to it that it remains down until they aren't complacent about people who are reckless in the way they present themselves to the people who pay their bills. Americans. It is called the National Football League, which means that, yeah, they could go to Canada, they could go somewhere else, but they're not going to enjoy the fundamentals of American money if Americans are ticked off enough to say, we're not going to tolerate that out of the people who are engaged with you. We're not going to tolerate it. So, take me back to my point. Complacency. If, in fact, someone had made a move, and you may say, oh, they don't care, they're so rich. No, you hit people where they live. And that's everyone. Everybody lives in their pocketbook. You don't have any money, it affects your life. You change a person's economic situation, it changes their life. It alters your life. I don't care who you are. I don't care who you are. You can be Donald Trump, you can be the Pope, you can be anybody. You can be an organization. Finances flowing changes lives. Whatever company you're a part of, that changes your life. If your finances are altered, the NFL, with all of their billions of dollars and with all the billions of dollars that these organizations, these football organizations make on and off the field and throughout the country and throughout their communities, if you stop paying attention to them, they become just as insignificant as, well, you name it, Pony League golfing. They become insignificant. If you, they exist because of your interest. And so what does that mean? That means that if you find something that is offensive to you, that's emanating, that's coming from them, that is not a part of who you want or the way your makeup is, then you need to let them know. And I promise you, it'll change. So here's Colin Kaepernick. Okay, I said his name. I said I wasn't going to mention his name on the air, but there is his. I mentioned his name. But you have the football player there for the 49ers. He makes the move that he makes. NFL, if they had made a move from the very beginning and said he can talk about his politics all he wants because that is his right to do so on his own time. Yeah, because there's too many Americans who are standing in this stadium, who are saluting and giving homage and reverence to this flag that so many have died for throughout the nation's history. So if he wants to make some public statement about this flag, he must do that on his own time, but not on NFL time. Because there are certain things that your company policies dictate to you if you want to keep your job. There's a reason why, Jay has a silence button, a dump button there in his room, in the tech room where he is, as he produces and does the technical things for the show. Now, let me tell you something. If this show was just a bunch of bleeps and bups and stuff that can't go over the airwaves, I wouldn't be here. Not long. Probably not tomorrow. Because why? It would be offensive to the built-in audience that this organization has, They couldn't afford to have me on the air running people off. Couldn't do it. The whole goal is to attract people and listenership to the station. So if the NFL was anything about business, they would send a message that, hey, you can do what you want to do. You can say what you want to say, but not on our time. Because the reason you're making the bucks that you're making, we come to watch you play football, just like, as I said a couple of weeks ago or last week, when the Dixie Chicks started talking about politics and George Bush and how they didn't like him, somebody yelled out, "Shut up and sing." That's what we have to yell out to the NFL. Oh, you can express your opinion anytime you want, but not when I bought this ticket to hear you sing. Not when I bought this ticket to see you play football. I don't want to hear what you have to say about the American flag or anything else as far as that's concerned. Use your celebrity if you want to, but you're not going to use it on our time. We'll talk a little bit more about it when I return. I'm CL. One thing we cannot allow is what I will refer to now as cultural Marxism. I want to share this with you because I don't know if you are aware of it, and one of my jobs as your host is to make you aware of things, and that's why I watch and read and study and dig things up. Remember, Thomas Jefferson said the price of liberty is eternal vigilance. Eternal vigilance. And if you are not able to do it for yourself, that's why you tune in radio shows like mine. That's why you tune in Rush. That's why you tune in Sean. But you're not going to get this, what I'm fixing to give you on Rush or Sean. You're not going to get this on them. I haven't heard them say it. Because my thoughts are my own. And I hope that every day that I bring something to you that's fresh. I know that radio is still a very effective and very huge medium. And there are a lot of copycats out there. There are a lot of people who just regurgitate whatever they heard somebody else say that day, and they rock along with that. Not here. I try to bring things to you that are. I'm called a fresh new conservative voice, and that's what I intend to be. So, cultural Marxism is what's going on in this country. The social engineering that's going on in this country is a part of a cultural Marxism. There was in Germany at one time something that was called the Frankfurt School, and of course it was in Frankfurt, Germany. It began before the reign of Hitler. Okay? Now, one thing about Hitler, even though he was a Nazi, and yes, he was a tyrant and all of that, he hated communist. He hated Leninism. He hated Marxism. And so when he came to power in Germany, he ran out. He ran the Frankfurt School out of Germany. He chased them out because he hated communism. Now, You know where they moved to? You know where they fled to? They fled to a place called Columbia University. Oh, yeah, Columbia University, right here in America. And on the campus of Columbia, you have right now the Frankfurt School building. And folks, let me tell you this. When we think about how the school and how Marxism is beginning to spread throughout the bloodstream of America, how socialism is beginning to affect our children, we talk about progressive liberalism. And we wonder why certain pockets of the country are so liberal, like New York, where Columbia is located. It is because there is a school of, when we talk about, there's a school of thought. Have you ever thought about that? The school of thought is truly a school of thought that's there to socially engineer the culture. Hitler, for the pros, cons, whatever you may think, knew that this would act against anything that he was about. But of course, he was about suppressing thought. America doesn't want to suppress. Listen, we don't want to run them out of the country. We just want to be able to know what they're doing and why they're doing it. We want to know what they're doing, and we want to know why they're doing it so that we can rebut it. We can speak against it. Because they've been here for ages now. Over 70 years. And they have progressively, the Frankfurt School of Thought has progressively affected the thought pattern here in America, along with others. And, you know, it spreads its way in various forms throughout the bloodstream of America. So, what are we seeing? We're seeing policemen being attacked in the streets by citizens. We're seeing schools, even elementary schools, being shot up. Just didn't start in high school, go back to Columbine and even before. You can go back to the Texas Tower shootings in Austin. Although that was someone who was truly deranged. Seems to me people were less deranged back then. Maybe they weren't. I don't know. Maybe crazy has always been crazy. I don't know. But it just looks like crazy is having a field day these days. Maybe it's just me. But it just looks like there's more crazy running around these days than back in the day when the civil defense horn used to go off at 12 noon every Saturday. It seemed like a kinder, gentler place here in the jeweled cities of the Arklatex than it is now. Even back when we actually had a nuclear threat from communist Russia, who had missiles pointed at us. We had missiles pointed at them. We had just come off the bay of the showdown there in Cuba, the Cuban Missile Crisis. And I remember when that siren as a kid used to go off on Saturday. The dogs would howl in the neighborhoods and everything, because you actually had to test that thing every Saturday, just in case it was ever needed. Seemed like kinder, gentler place then. But now crazy is running rampant. I'm CL. We'll be back. %58 rise in people on food stamps, minorities on food stamps. 20% rise in minorities that are out of work. A 20% lower than national average among minorities in home ownership. You have 8.1% unemployment, and it's actually higher than that in minority unemployment. You have a wage gap that's worse now than in 40 years among minorities. And you have $20,000 less in income. And that's below the national average. That's way below the national average, which put them way below the national average in this country. Now, I'm a minority, as it goes, you know. And let me tell you something. If for some reason we couple this and put it in a capsule and let's all of a sudden go to Appalachia, where you wouldn't necessarily label the people who live in the Appalachians Mountains as minorities, whether you're going from West Virginia through Kentucky or wherever you're going up that trail there, they wouldn't be minorities as far as identifiable is concerned. But they sure are poor. Oh, my goodness. There is nobody in any inner city, including Detroit, Baltimore, and which are two of the worst inner cities I've seen. And I actually saw Cabrini Green when it was still around. There's nobody in the inner city ghettos that would want to trade places with folks in Appalachia. They poor. I have seen people there who live in a little bit more than a cave. Just a little bit more than a cave. They're proud, but they poor. And they're white. What am I saying? I'm saying that yes, poverty and the pain of that does exist in this country. It does absolutely exist. And it does cause you to wonder why it affects anyone who is an American citizen, because we are truly a wealthy nation. And yes, we should be able to help those who are unable to help themselves. But what I have noticed, that those who are in Appalachia and those who live in Baltimore, the inner cities of Baltimore or the inner cities of Detroit, have in common is that they have surrendered themselves over to the way it is. Almost everybody in the area, in both of those areas, in all of those areas that I'm talking about, receive some type of government assistance. And my message has been this, whether they're white or black, okay? And my message is that there has been a design, there it is, one of my words there that I use intentionally, there is a design by those who would want to socially engineer a segments of our population. They want to keep them that way. If they didn't want to keep them that way, it could have been remedied with all of the money that we have spent on social programs. Are you kidding me? On all of the money that we have spent on education? On food stamps? Housing programs? If they didn't want this to remain like that, they could have, the government could have done something about it. I'm talking about Democrats and Republicans.
One.
I'll talk to you a little bit more about it because you are able to see now more of a co-conspiracy that has taken place than like never before. And we ask, why is it somebody like a Donald Trump, when he says that they have failed us, is attacked by both parties? The Democrat, no, it's not because he's a racist. Donald Trump is not a racist. It's not because he's a bigot. He is not a bigot. It's because, in his own plain spoken way, in my estimation, he's exposing something that folks didn't want exposed. I'll be right back. Our college campus is a breeding ground for those things that alter and socially engineer our society. Yes, they are. College campuses are breeding grounds for progressive liberal social engineering. This is why hostility is so rampant and apparent and evident whenever a conservative like myself visits a college campus with a conservative message. I have told you before, and I'm telling you again, it is also why Hollywood is hostile toward any actor who dare say that they support conservatism. Your job place may be a place where you know that you better not say anything that resembles Christianity, that resembles anything conservative. You have to go along to get along. You can't be an American on your job because your boss may have actually come out of one of these progressive liberal colleges. You may have been there 20 years. And in that 20-year span of time, that kid who was 10 years old when you got your job, they are now about to graduate from college and come into the workplace with their degree. and become a part of management, things change. That's why Walmart's different now, you know. Oh, yeah. When Sam Walton was alive, my wife used to be one of the count money there in the Walmart system when Sam was alive. And Sam Walton was from the old school. Yeah. You could be an individual with Sam. He was all about that. But Sam died. And things changed in that entire company. Still a great company to be with, still a great company to work for, I imagine. But that's what happened. And that's what happens throughout corporate America. The kid who has been educated in the progressive liberal college and university, he is now, that you have been there 20 years, he's now coming out of college. And he or she, are now entering into management with their progressive liberal education. And the goal of that is to socially engineer whatever they come into or become a part of and mold that in the image of the people who taught them. And so when you see this swing in American core value, you're seeing the effects of a progressive liberal education. And as you and I grow older, and this audience is very strong in the 35 and up category, as you and I grow older, 10 years, 25 years from now, you will now have a group of people who are in management who have just graduated from those institutions. It changes the culture. This is why Obama could very effectively say that you're going to see a fundamental change in this country. He understands what I have just told you. He understands how it can be orchestrated. He understands how that's orchestrated. And we ask, why is it that Donald Trump meets with such opposition? Is because he is pointing out to us that there is a co-conspiracy that's been going on in both parties. That's why he is opposed by what we would call good old boy Republicans. And surely he is opposed by those who are Democrats, because they've been in Washington together for so long, they've become comfortable with each other. They understand each other. They understand the game plan. They understand the end game. And anyone who comes along wanting to upset that apple cart, who is actually called a wrecking ball, like Donald Trump is called, they don't want that. Why is it that Hillary Clinton, by all intents and purposes, has flown right through the noose? People are asking this. You have frustrated true conservatives on the Hill right now, wondering how did we get so corrupt that she could get away with what she's gotten away with. It's because the system's rigged. It's rigged. And she was a part of the mechanism and part of the team that rigged it. So they protect her. And folks, I am telling you that if you're not careful, if you're not vigilant, as Thomas Jefferson warned us to be, liberty, your liberty, you'll pay a price and you'll lose it, because the price of our liberty is eternal vigilance. You have to be on guard. for things that can snatch it away from you. Well, I'll be back in just a little bit to close it out, and I certainly hope that all of you have a safe weekend. I opened the show by asking you, how is it that we go about our daily lives? Not expecting anything out of the ordinary to happen, certainly not anything that could harm us other than driving our cars, and we're all aware of the dangers that go along with that. But I think about in Hoboken, I was mentioning to you about Hoboken that happened yesterday. And I can't help but hear the words of Christ saying to us that tomorrow is not promised. But I certainly hope that in the next couple of minutes I'm able to return and bid you adieu until I talk to you again. Don't go anywhere. I'm CL.
Well, you've heard about love and giving sight to the blind. My baby loving cause the sun to shine, and she my sweet little thing.
The words shelter in place is something, or words that we really don't want to get used to hearing. Shelter in place. When you hear those words, my friends, when you hear the news media saying on your radio or your television or wherever you may be, that the people at this location, whatever location, the mall, the church, wherever it is, the school, wherever it is, when you hear that they have been instructed to shelter in place, know one thing, that there's somebody who is a Looney Tune on the loose who want to do them harm. We don't want to get used to hearing those words. How do we avoid it? Well, I opened the show by talking about it. I'll close it by talking about it. And you think about it. You take it with you over the weekend. You take it with you, and you consider what this really means to you, your family, your children. What does this mean to you? Law and order. No, we need to come again to a place where we don't expect to hear those words shelter in place. We need to come again to a place where we know that we can depend on law and order. Because even the people who 90% of them, maybe more, in the inner cities, who are law-abiding citizens, they want law and order too. They want law and order as well. And so you have to ask yourself a question. What are you prepared to do? What do you need to do to ensure that that is the climate where you live? Invite it in. Sure will make your life better. I do believe. Well, I want to thank God for bringing us to the close of yet another day, and I want to thank Him for our men and women in uniform around the globe who defend our right to speak our mind. And until I'm able to talk to you again, I'm CL, and may God bless and keep you all.
We'll stand by your side, and the